all year round.
It's so mysterious.
This is who we are.
This is who we are.
WAVR.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
Good evening and thank you for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. First, our top stories. Senior military officers arrested for alleged coup attempt in Guinea-Bissau. Nigeria's President Tinubu orders service chiefs to crush terrorism, promises full support for military operations.
We cannot allow the crisis that began in year 2009 to persist any longer. It is time to defeat the enemies.
Ivorian Electoral Commission sets December 27 for parliamentary election, and experts urge African governments to invest in local climate and health solutions.
Our mandate now is to show or to prove this concept to the government and to the authorities so that we can get their buy-in.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is a more edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin in Guinea-Bissau, where several senior military officers have been arrested over allegations of plotting a coup d'etat, the latest in a long line of political and military tensions in the country. Deputy Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, Mamadou Kourouma, confirmed the arrest on Friday, saying the officers were taken into custody after intelligence suggested they were involved in plans to destabilize the government. Abdullah Hassan has more details in this report.
Among those detained are General Dahaba Nawalna, Commander Domingos Nhanke, and Commander Mario Medina. The arrest reportedly took place on Thursday at their homes in the capital, Bissau. Kourouma declined to give further details on the number of officers involved. An attempt by international media to reach the accused or their representatives have so far been unsuccessful. The development adds to Guinea-Bissau's long history of political instability and military interference, which has persisted since the country gained independence from Portugal in 1974. President Umaru Sissoco Embalo, who came to power in 2020, has already faced two reported coup attempts during his tenure, the most recent in December 2022 when gunfire was heard near the presidential palace. Political climate in Bissau remains tense. The opposition continues to challenge President Embalo's legitimacy, arguing that his 5-year mandate expired at the end of February 2025. However, the Supreme Court of Justice has ruled that his term officially ends on September 4, a decision that has done little to ease political friction. The government has not yet announced formal charges against the detained officers, but authorities insist that investigations are ongoing.
Abdullah Hassan filed a report. Meanwhile, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has charged the new service chiefs to intensify effort to defeat once and for all the scourge of terrorism, banditry and other criminal activities across the country. Tinubu told the service chiefs that Nigerians expected results, not excuses from them, and he promised to provide all the support they need to get the job done. The president acknowledges the recent emergence of new armed groups in the north central, northwest and parts of the south, and how security threats are constantly evolving and mutating.
Our grave concern to our administration is the recent emergence of a new armed groups in the troublesome area of north central, northwest and parts of the south. We must not allow this new threat to fester. We must be decisive and proactive. Let us smash the new snakes right in the head. I charge you, as the head of our nation's armed forces, to carry out your duties with patriotic zeal. Nigerians expect result and not excuses. We are in a hurry to celebrate peace. I charge you also to be innovative, preemptive, and courageous Let's stay ahead of those who seek to threaten our peace, freedom, and stability. Let us deploy technology where necessary. We cannot allow the crisis that began in year 2009 to persist any longer. It is time to defeat the enemies.
Nigeria's President was speaking there. Meanwhile, the outgoing Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, formally handed over leadership to the new CSD, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, during a valedictory ceremony held at the Defense Headquarters in Abuja. The General, in his remarks, underscored the importance of capacity building, research and technology in modern warfare, noting that the armed forces will deepen collaboration with local and international partners to advance operational efficiency.
As I take over as the Chief of the Defense Staff, I wish to reaffirm my total commitment to the defense and security of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The nature of threats confronting our nation, ranging from terrorism, insurgency and banditry, to emerging cyber, aerial and maritime security threats, require us to be ever vigilant, innovative and united. My leadership will therefore be guided by the principles of professionalism, jointness, discipline, innovation and accountability. We shall build on the achievements of my predecessor by strengthening synergy among the services and defense agencies. Our objective, which is to restore and sustain peace, stability and national cohesion in every part of our dear country, remains uncontestable. Equally important is the welfare of our officers and men, which remains central to operational effectiveness. Under my leadership, the Defense Headquarters will continue to advocate for improved welfare, housing, medical support, and training opportunities for personnel and their families. We shall also invest in the moral and psychological well-being of our troops, ensuring that the sacrifices are recognized and rewarded. We will prioritize capacity building, research and technological innovation to enhance our operational efficiency and strategic foresight. In doing so, we shall leverage the resources and intellect available across our defense institutions, as well as partnerships with local and international stakeholders.
Nigeria's Chief of the Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, speaking there. Now, experts and policy leaders from across West Africa have been debating the role of regional bodies like ECOWAS and the African Union in driving integration across the continent. The discussion took place at a meeting organized at the Al-Mandla Institute for Policy and Leadership Advancement in collaboration with ECOWAS and the African Leadership Center at the ECOWAS Commission headquarters in Abuja. WDL's Usman Umar reports.
At a two-day meeting themed Reimagining West African Regional Cooperation, Alternative Futures, experts gathered to exchange ideas on the future of regional collaboration in Africa. Senegalese Special Envoy to AES and International Affairs, Professor Abdoulaye Bathily, maintained that regional organizations remain crucial pillars for integration, fostering unity and collective action in addressing common challenges.
Regional organizations are necessary to be a vehicle for the voice of Africa in the world as it is today. Africa's voice needed to be heard for the economy, for politics, for culture. Regional organizations are necessary and indispensable.
However, Dr. Titilope Ajayi of the Institute for Security Studies took a contrasting position, arguing that Africans were integrating long before the establishment of bodies like ECOWAS and the AU. She described these organizations as outdated structures that now hinder rather than advance integration efforts.
Are regional organizations necessary for regional integration in Africa? My argument is simple. They are not. Regional organizations once symbolized collective aspirations, but over time, the roof has outgrown the house. The institutions have expanded while the foundations of trust, mobility, and cooperation among citizens have been neglected. Integration did not begin with bureaucracies, and it will not end without them.
Other participants offered mixed views, some agreeing that reforms are needed to make regional institutions more people-oriented, while others emphasized that the absence of such organizations would leave a vacuum in coordinating regional development and peace initiatives. The meeting, organized as part of ECOWAS' 50th anniversary reflections, provided a rare platform for frank conversations on the need to reform the bloc and move toward an ECOWAS of the people. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from the ECOWAS Commission headquarters in Abuja.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We head now to Côte d'Ivoire, where the Independent Electoral Commission, known as CEI, has officially announced that parliamentary elections will be held on December 7, 2025. The announcement was made by the president of the commission, Ibrahim Coulibaly Kibet, who explained that the polls must take place before December 31, when the current term of parliament officially comes to an end. Francis Boniface provides the details in this report.
According to the CEI, the electoral campaign will run from December 19 to 26, giving political parties and candidates just 1 week to make their case to voters across the country. Preliminary results are expected between December 28 and 30, while any electoral dispute must be resolved by January 5, ahead of the inaugural session of the new National Assembly, scheduled for January 19. Deputies in Côte d'Ivoire's National Assembly are elected for 5-year terms through direct universal suffrage, meaning citizens will once again have the opportunity to choose their representatives at the ballot box. The upcoming vote will serve as crucial test for the country's democratic institutions, following President Alassane Ouattara's landslide election, which drew both celebration and criticism from parts of the opposition. Observers said the parliamentary polls will reveal whether Côte d'Ivoire's political climate is opening up after years of tension, or if old rivalries will resurface on the campaign trail. For now, the CEI says preparations are underway to ensure transparency, fairness, and broad participation ahead of the December vote.
Francis Boniface filed that report. In Guinea, opposition political parties are calling for a postponement of the presidential election scheduled for December 28, 2025. They say they have identified several inconsistencies between the electoral code and the constitution. They point specifically to Article 248 of the Electoral Code, which limits the sponsorship of independent candidacies. These political parties believe that postponing the election would also allow for more inclusive consultations with the aim of ensuring a fair and equitable electoral process. Now let's head to Mali, where authorities have announced new measures on how military personnel can access fuel. From now on, soldiers stationed in Bamako and Kati will have to obtain their fuel supplies exclusively from 6 designated service stations. Augustin Kuli tells us more in this report.
The decision was announced by the General Staff of the Armed Forces following reports of military personnel joining long queues at civilian fuel stations. According to the Army statement, these 6 service points will now serve only members of the Defense and Security Forces to reduce congestion and maintain order. Soldiers who go to any other station will have to wait in the regular queue like anyone else. No priority treatment will be allowed. This new directive comes at a time when Mali is facing acute fuel shortages, with long lines stretching for hours at petrol stations across the capital. The country, which is landlocked and relies heavily on imports from Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire, has been struggling with disrupted supplies since September 2025, when armed attacks by the group JNIM, affiliated with Al-Qaeda, began targeting fuel convoys heading into the country. The military says the restrictions are meant to ensure better management of the limited fuel available and to prevent further tension between civilians and soldiers at filling stations. According to the military, chiefs of staff, service directors and unit commanders are personally responsible for enforcing the new rule. A sign of how seriously the authorities are taking the measure amid the ongoing crisis.
Augustin Kuli filed that report. Meanwhile, there seems to be a sign of relief over the looming fuel scarcity induced by the JNIM armed group operating in the northern region of Mali. On Wednesday, nearly 200 fuel tankers arrived in the capital Bamako under heavy military escort. The supply authorities say it's expected to ease weeks of scarcity that have crippled transport and driven up prices across the country. Residents struggling with a severe fuel shortage hope the current intervention suffices. But beyond the fuel crisis, there is a growing security concern following the new modus operandi of the JNIM armed group and its overall mission. Mamadou Tilabli is a Malian journalist.
The current situation, we can say there's not really a very significant improvement. I mean, it's not worsened than the beginning. But still, there are long queue, at the petrol station, still trying to fetch for petrol to get some fuel. And what's really is happening, and it's complicated, but there's a lot of hope for the Malian people, because yesterday there were like 200 trucks that have entered in the capital city. from these regions, like the influence regions border from Senegal, like Kai or Sikasso, which is the border side of Ivory Coast too, those are already out of these situations. They're getting fuel. But the capital city, where there's many people who are, the traffic is much large, I mean, there's still lack of fuel, but people are hoping and the trucks are still coming in the capital city.
Malians and Mali as a community, as a country, is very resilient. But how much more can they take before they get overwhelmed or overrun by emotions? Because as we speak, we understand that the fuel scarcity is impacting or affecting several sectors of the Malian society. Transportation today has come to a halt. Even schools are on break because there is fuel shortage.
By seeing all these impacts, which is a problem concerning transportation, electricity, fuel, all these problems, among all these problems, Malians are trying to be supportive to the government. Otherwise, Malians will just say, no, it's enough, because they're fed up with this.
Mamadou Tabila is a Malian journalist. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Senior military officers arrested for alleged coup attempt in Guinea-Bissau. Nigeria's President Tinubu orders service chiefs to crush terrorism, promises full support for military operations. Ivorian Electoral Commission sets December 27 for parliamentary elections. And still ahead in the news, experts urge African governments to invest in local climate and health solution. We don't have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget, we are streaming live on wadr.org and join our live streamings on YouTube and Facebook. Back in Senegal, climate and health stakeholders have called on African governments to invest in local technologies, innovation and research to address the growing climate crisis and build stronger health resilience. Participants at the second edition of the Local Solutions Campus in Dakar expressed concern over the limited budgetary allocations by governments to tackle the challenge. More than 500 delegates from 26 countries across Africa and Asia are attending the conference. Christopher Teacher was at the event and filed in this report.
Public health and environmental protection are no longer considered two separate battles, but rather the two inseparable pillars of resilience and sustainable development.
That's Senegal's Minister of Environment and Ecological Transition, Alhaj Abdurrahman Diouf. According to him, ahead of COP30 in Brazil next month, the second edition of the Local Solutions Campus is timely, as it showcases local knowledge and innovations by frontline actors in responding to the effects of climate change on health, while also strengthening regional synergies. In Senegal, Rift Valley fever, a zoonotic epidemic linked to climate change, has so far killed 28 people, with 338 cases recorded at the time of this report. Health and Public Hygiene Minister Ibrahim Asseh informed of a multi-sectorial initiative by the government to curb the outbreak.
The Ministry of Health and Public Hygiene of Senegal has created a new division called Environment, Climate and Health, tasked with leading the implementation of our national climate and health strategy. This division embodies our commitment to sustainable integration of environmental and climate issues into public health policies, anticipating risks and strengthening the resilience of our health system.
Participants, however, decried the lack of government investment in research, local innovation, and technology to address the continent's growing climate challenges. Dr. Devota Nyambo, the innovator behind an AI system for mosquito breeding site surveillance, explains.
In my country, we still have places where malaria endemicity is at beyond 20%. So our mandate now is to show or to prove this concept to the government and to the authorities so that we can get their buy-in in terms of financial support.
The event, powered by Foundation X, will provide support and scale-up opportunities for 60 innovation projects designed to help communities respond effectively to climate impact in Africa and Asia.
Christopher Ticho filed the report. Meanwhile, the second annual conference of the Dupont Velo Network for Investigative Journalism, in collaboration with the Convention of Young Reporters of Senegal, was held in the Senegalese capital on Friday. This year's theme, Conflicts and Terrorism in Africa, the Challenges of Journalists, brought together reporters, editors and media advocates to discuss what it really means to cover some of the continent's most dangerous and complex stories. Tedibu Marong is the head of RSF for Sub-Saharan Office and one of the panelists at the event.
Journalists who dare to report on conflict situations or on war-torn zones, most of the time they are caught between two dimensions. If it is in terrorism countries hit by terrorism, like in the Sahelian countries, they might be caught between the army, the regular army, and the regular army's response and the armed group terrorist attacks. So if you are a journalist and will be in between those, that means if the terrorists they caught you, they will have a win, and they will use you or your name as a kind of merchandise, so as to put the level higher. But the army themselves, most of the time, they are not prepared to welcome civilian-like journalists in the conflict zones. So most of the time, they are hitting. They might be arresting you, accusing you as a spy, or charging you with extraordinary charge. These are the things. So, in a nutshell, it is the journalists might be caught in between war, arrested by armed group terrorists, arrested by armies, charged for unlawful charge and also he might also be killed.
Madibu Marong is the head of RSF for Sub-Saharan Office and one of the panelists at the event. The Liberian House of Representatives faced disruption on Thursday stemming from unresolved disagreements around homosexuality and ill cultural practices in the country. Several lawmakers deemed these acts as not being in Liberia's best interest. The turmoil highlights deep division within the legislature regarding social issues and their compatibility with Liberian values. WDL's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The disruption was triggered by comments from Representative Anthony Williams from the majority bloc. Williams, who had proposed legislation concerning homosexual activity and its potential impact on Liberian society, expressed frustration over what he called a deliberate obstruction of his proposals whenever he appeared for discussion. According to him, several religious and traditional institutions in the country are against same-sex marriage.
Homosexual activity appears on our agenda. The speaker, the speaker, they are on it. We had our own communication over there. We invited the UFC people. Now, the church, they want to practice homosexual activities, gay activities. We continue to push the agenda. Every time we go on the floor, when they come to the session, they will move on the floor. The
debate also touched upon the influence of the executive, which sees a majority consideration without due oversight. Representative Wadr alluded to a prior agreement referencing the communication from President Joseph Boakai to ban harmful cultural activities.
President Boakai said a bill here that we should ban cultural activity that is harmful. All they accepted the bill. Immediately the Senate committee will not discussing it, so we can ban cultural activities. Now homosexual bill appear, they said no, we should not discuss.
After a tense moment on the floor, also Speaker Richard Decon prematurely ended Thursday's session. In 2012, the Liberian Senate passed a bill that criminalizes same-sex marriage, but its final status and implementation details are not always clear. Since that legislation, many Liberians have voiced their disapproval, a concern recently elevated by the United Methodist Church of Liberia during an international convention in the United States. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Well, still talking about ECOWAS 50th anniversary, the regional bloc faces growing calls for reform amid concerns of waning public trust and questions about its continued relevance. While some critics argue that the organization has outlived its purpose. Others insist it remains vital to regional stability and integration. Nigeria's former ambassador to Russia, Ambassador Abdullahi Shehu, who is participating in the ongoing meeting of experts in Abuja, shared his views with WDL's Usman Umar on the headlines of the event.
Very necessary, if not absolutely, because integration does not replace sovereignty. What integration promotes is collective security. Nation states, sovereign states, coming together to identify their priorities and working together to meet their specific goals and integrating their people. As I can tell you without hesitation that the ECOWAS has become a model of integration in the world. In my mind, is the most successful regional integration. And if we can use this as a model, then we can conclude that regional integration is a necessity for deepening economic development, especially within the perspective of the South, global South.
There are those who argue that long before the coming on board of these regional bodies, Africans, as they later became known, have been integrating. They've been relating on economy and other fronts. Doesn't this nullify the position that ECOWAS is doing something different?
Well, it's true that African societies have been integrating from times immemorial. But I think what we call modern integration started since the Westphalia Treaty, when the role of states became very paramount, but not discountenancing the roles of non-state actors. Therefore, we recall the empires, the big empires that existed in Africa before most African countries became independent. To that extent, yes. But you see, we are now talking in terms of what we mean by regional, modern regional integration. Modern regional integration has gone beyond what the empires were doing. We are facing emerging challenges in terms of technologies, in terms of many other things, that we need to respond collectively to our current challenges. Take, for example, the problem of climate. Climate change is an important issue as it is now than 15 years ago. So it's something we can deal with. Again, what has added to the dimension of our regional integration is that these integration bodies have helped in solving some of our social problems. If we take the example of ECOWAS intervention in stabilizing democracy in West Africa, then we could see that the pattern and method of integration, modern integration, has significant difference with what we used to have under the African empires, the Songhai empires, the Mali empire, the Ghana empires, Oyo empires, Kanamborno, etc., etc.
Nigeria's former ambassador to Russia, Ambassador Abdullahi Shehu, speaking there. In sport news, Bayern Munich's Allianz Arena is the sole candidate for the 2028 Champions League final, while Wembley and the renovated Camp Nou are both vying for the 2029 final, UEFA said on Friday. Munich was the only city that stepped forward for the 2028 final after hosting it in 2025 when Paris Saint-Germain thrashed Inter Milan 5-0. Munich also hosted the Elite European Club final in 1979, 93 and 97 in the Olympic Stadium, and 2012 and 2025 at the Allianz Arena. And that's it for sport news. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Falilu So and Ismaila Kamara for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, TikTok, Instagram at WDR English. I am Imo Edit. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM,
Riverside County. Wakat FM Radio, Baga, Liberia. Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.